So in the past couple weeks, there has been some discussions about whether or not Jordan Love played better in 2024 than he did in 2023. I want to take a look here at what former NFL quarterback Chris Sims had to say on his show in the past week or so. Chris Sims Unbuttoned. He's also speaking here with Ahmed Fareed, who starts the discussion. He says there was some conversation, it's been recently here, that maybe he took a step back last year. Debate on that. Chris Sims says, right, I think that's a fair thing to say, but I think there's context to that. And we always say context matters here on the Chris Sims Unbuttoned podcast. It does. Yeah, it wasn't as good last year. There's still big-time, game-changing type talent here with Jordan Love. He still is he puts fear in defensive coordinators because he's so aggressive and he's got such an easy way of throwing the ball down the field and making explosive plays that it's scary playing him. He's also a guy that I've even heard defensive coaches saying this, like, yeah, he's scary because he does look for the big play a lot. He might have a chance to take like a 5-yard gain, but he'll sit there and go, no, I'm about to see the 25, 30-yarder coming open, so I'm going to wait for it. This is the coverage that's there. He's great at that, and that scares people that way. So there is some scary things about him. But as far as like what you're saying, yeah, he took a step back. There's definitely, and that's why he's maybe took a step back in my rankings. I'm just, hey, it's only 2 years of playing. He's still very young as far as the NFL is concerned. He dealt with injuries from week 1 on, right? And I think that really derailed him. And that's what makes him tough here in this whole process too, because I don't know if I got to see the true Jordan Love really the whole year. So Chris Sims does believe that Jordan Love took a step back. And I don't think it's crazy to have that opinion. I think when you look at 2023 and 2024, just overall, looking at his entire regular season each year, it was very similar. If you look at some numbers, passer rating, it was slightly higher in 2024, 96.7 in 2024 versus 96.1 in 2023. He had a slightly higher EPA per dropback, which is expected points added, plus 0.07 per dropback 2024, plus 0.06 per dropback in 2023. And he also had a higher QBR in 2024, 69.3 versus 62.9. And so I just think when you look at the entire season, it was very, very similar. When you look at his overall stat line from 2023 to 2024, also very similar. Of course, he did miss some games, and so that did factor into this just when it came to overall touchdowns. 25 touchdowns, 11 picks last year. In 2023, 32 touchdowns, 11 picks. So a couple more picks. But all in all, in the regular season, it was pretty much identical. And it was very interesting that he followed a similar pattern each year, starting off a little bit shaky. And then down the stretch, November, December, he played really good football, barely turning the ball over. And then unfortunately, in both years, in his final playoff game, only having one playoff game this past year, he didn't play good football. So I think all in all, he had a very similar year. There are some areas where he definitely was worse, in my opinion. And if you do include the postseason, if you look at passer rating, for example, if you include the postseason each year, he had when you look at regular season and postseason, he had a 92.7 passer rating in 2024, a 97.1 passer rating in 2023. So a whole nearly 5 points lower in 2024. And of course, when you have a game in the playoffs, when you throw 0 touchdowns and 3 picks, that is going to greatly impact your passer rating. And you had that game in 2023 where he dominated against the Cowboys, and that helped him that year as well. And so I don't have that much of a problem of Chris Sims saying that he thought Jordan Love took a step back this past year. I don't think if he did take a step back, it was a crazy step back. I think that all in all, it was a pretty similar season. And I do like that Chris Sims brought up the fact of these injuries he had to play through, because when you have an MCL injury and the other injury as well, the lower body injuries, it's going to affect your rhythm. It's going to affect your accuracy, all those kinds of things. And that is one area where I do believe Jordan Love was worse in 2024 versus 2023. If you look at accuracy percentage, which basically just shows, this is from Fantasy Points data, it shows like highly accurate throws where you're putting it exactly where it needs to be. 52.2% in 2023 to 44.9% in 2024. And so I do think a big part of that was the injuries. And so the whole point of all is that basically, depending on what stat you look at, some he was better in 2024, some he was better in 2023. And I think for me, leaving 2023 the way that he did, playing at that elite level against the Cowboys and then playing good football until, the final quarter and a half or so against the Niners where he throws those 2 picks, it seemed like he was, trending in a certain direction where if he played the same kind of football he did to end last year and against the Cowboys, if he started from that point in 2024 and played at that level, then, I think he'd be playing as a top 3 to 5 quarterback. But that just wasn't the case. And I do think, as I said, a huge part is the injury problems. But I assumed he would take a bigger step forward in 2024 than he did. And Chris Sims is not alone in this belief that Jordan Love had a worse year in 2024. If you look at PFF grade, which I know people have differing opinions on the PFF grades, PFF did have him graded lower in 2024. If you look at their postseason and regular season grade, 83.6 out of 100 in 2023, dropped down to 75.8 in 2024. So all in all, I don't think it was a crazy difference if you were to say he played worse in 2024. And I think looking ahead to 2025, getting Matthew Golden into the room, who I think is going to be a very solid receiver just on every area of the field, that's got to help Jordan Love. Staying healthy, hopefully, should help Jordan Love. And so I would be pretty surprised if we don't see some kind of improvement. And hopefully we can see Jordan Love get off to a fast start in 2025. Just because the past couple of years, it was a little shaky early on. His first year starting, it makes sense. It's your first time taking over the starting job in Green Bay after Aaron Rodgers leaves. So you get that. It took some time to really, get his legs under him. Then in 2024, you have the injury. So, 2 tough situations to start each year. And now in 2025, let's hope that he doesn't have something like, an injury derail him and hurt him when it comes to just, being able to play at his full ability, being healthy. So I expect to see Jordan Love take a step forward, not only because I think he, will just improve going into his 3rd year starting, but also improving the offensive line around him, adding Matthew Golden, Savion Williams. I think that he's set up really nicely for 2025. But I will be curious to hear, do you agree with Chris Sims? Do you not? Do you think Jordan Love played better in 2024 than 2023? Or do you think he was the same, better? I'll be curious to hear your thoughts down below. But if you want Packers content, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.